So we were talking about the moving outside of your boundaries, your protective enclosure. And one thing that we mentioned was Fiddler on the Roof was about that idea, tradition, moving out of tradition towards a wider, expansive consciousness, I guess. Why does Fiddler on the Roof represent this? The Fiddler on the Roof. Can you just describe the metaphor, and then also the idea of standing on the edge of the cliff?
Yeah, well, that whole Fiddler on the Roof. See, that's a metaphor for understanding that we're all fiddlers on the roof. We're all dancing. It's like a cat on the hot tin roof. That was another movie. But we're all a fiddler on the roof. We're all living life that can't be protected or promoted or sustained by our protective enclosures, by our homemade plans of protection. We're all a fiddler on the roof, dancing so that we can then join the flow dance. And that instead of avoiding or ignoring or denying that we're all fiddlers on the roof, then we settle for imprisonment in traditions and relationships, etc.
These are all homemade plans of protection and salvation. These give you comfort. These are nests, dens.
Yeah, well, they give you a chance to grow up.
They're necessary.
Yeah, they're necessary. But if you become comfortable with them and adjust to them, then you're never going to get out.
And then what happens? You suffocate, you die,
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
But some people are just so good at working in them, they never get themselves in trouble that they never can break out.
Yeah, well, let's go back to another one of my favorite movies, The Dead Poets Society. You see, all of those boys were being invited to step out of their comfort zone, and they weren't.
Some of them weren't ready for that, but keep going, yeah.
Most of them were not ready for it, and the only one that was ready for it, he stepped out, but all kinds of forces tried to bring him back in, just like they were trying to bring the rest of the guys back in.
Like his dad?
Yeah. And his dad tried to bring him back, in fact, did bring him back in, but instead of giving in to conformity, he was the only one who said, I'm going to break out. And that his way of breaking out was committing suicide. He was the most alive of the whole group.
He was like the Jesus figure, huh?
Yeah.
He died for the sins.
Yeah, and he died for awakening in his buddies a realization, the possibility that they could break out, and that you choose to die one way or another. You either die in dull, deadening drudgery, or you die by saying, I'm not going to tolerate imprisonment any longer.
We talked about the deeds, right? Already, the devil's
Yeah.
picture. So this is interesting. I remember watching that movie recently, and it was funny because it was so clear to me. Because this guy, the teacher, was teaching them some very, he's teaching them be creative, let go. But they didn't understand. But they knew there was something to it. And this is the pitfall that a lot of people get into. So then they think, you know what? This guy's right. It is bullshit to just be conforming and to be a goody two shoes so we can go to heaven, blah, blah, or whatever. So now I'm a badass, and like now I'm just a rebel. So then some of them weren't ready and they became rebels. And like but they thought that to their teacher, I thought you taught us to be like this. But then he had to pull it back a little bit and then teach them like, well, no, that's not what I was trying to.
Yeah,
You remember that?
Oh, that's good insight. Yep, that's exactly what that movie is all about.
Any other thoughts of that?
No, that was a great movie.
Are some people born rebels or?
Well, that's a good question. It's very clear to me that some of us are more explorator than others. And it starts very early in their life. You can see it in their life. I've said, I don't know where mine came from, but I can see it in the pictures of Me and my twin sister. You can see it in her face, in her countenance, and we were probably 6 weeks old, and you could see the difference, even that early. Now, where that came from, I have absolutely no idea. And my brother's 5 years younger. You could see the same thing in them. One was much more of an explorer than the other. Now, where that came from, I don't know. But the other interesting thing is, my sister then became a real explorer. She left home, went to college. She's the first one in the family to go to college. She went to India. After studying in England, she learned Hindi and went to India and was a missionary. So she was really quite an explorer. But the interesting thing is she came back then and settled down for the rest of her life then in the family atmosphere. So, I don't, and that's a phenomenon that all we can do is be grateful.
I
can't take any personal credit. In other words,
I'm gonna bring this one up out of nowhere, but let me first ask you. All right, there's a couple things I want to mention really quick, but this is probably something that'd be best not for this lecture. But well, first off, let me ask you about Alexander the Great. So Alexander the Great, we're talking about boundaries, and Alexander the Great, he was like that, right? He was born. They said he was an incarnation of God. Or at least that God, he was a son of God or something.
Yeah.
And he's maybe not incarnation, but he was a son of Zeus or something. That's what people argued. But he's going to he's expanding, and this is his desire for oneness and no boundaries, and there's a spiritual aspiration. Okay, so can you first also talk about the idea that behind every aberration there's a spiritual aspiration, and what was this spiritual aspiration behind what he was doing? To create oneness, or what was it? Can you describe this?
Yeah, to discover and participate in oneness. That's what motivates that desire to break out and to keep expanding our spectrum of awareness, our consciousness.
Because so long as you're this, there's so much more, and you want to be one with everything. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. There's a natural desire. The arc of the universe bends toward full spectrum awareness. Mm-hmm. It appears that's what evolution is all about.
But was Alexander the Great? Was there an aberration behind it? Was he trying to make it? Was there an aberration?
Well, yeah. See, when you're good at that, you can begin to take personal credit for it and give yourself credit for making it happen. See, that's what's behind this great fear of creating a new world order, a one world order. See, there's a great fear about that, and that's a legitimate fear because Hitler had the idea that he could create one world. And anybody that's in the flow and finds that things begin, like Alexander the Great, it's very clear people were aware that he was in the flow. But there's always a fear then that he's going to create his own version of heaven rather than facilitate an awareness.
And what's wrong with that? Creating your own vision of heaven. What's wrong with this? Okay.
Well, it's doomed to failure because you can't do it.
Why?
Because it's already there.
It's already there.
Yeah.
So the more you try to make it happen, it's already there. It's like when I'm playing basketball, and I'm like, okay, is that what Jesus was saying? When the kingdom of heaven's among you?
Yeah.
Like I'm playing basketball. Maybe if I do this, maybe if I do this, maybe this. But if I were to just let go to where I was when I was young, you should have seen it, man. I lost a lot of videos. I'm making 5, 6 3-pointers a game. Consistently.
Yeah.
And when I was dribbling, I was doing this stuff. I'm looking at myself back then. I lost some of the videos where I was doing the foot drags and stuff, but how did I do that? And how did I even know to do that? I didn't even know I was doing that.
Right. See, because it's already there. But if you try to create it again, it won't happen.
But I found that if you looked at my games and stuff, like even when I was in choir, I scored 40 points. I was mimicking some of the stuff I did in the flow.
Yeah, you can
give me an edge.
Yeah, you can mimic it. Yeah, and that's useful because that's preparing you for the accidental surprise of it happening again.
Yeah, thoughts of that, Grandpa?
No.
So I remember the Muslims say though, Muhammad, blessings peace be upon him, when he took out his arrow, or no, he said something about if you were an archer, it's against God to stop being an archer. Like if that's what you are, and you decide I'm going to stop it, because a lot of people might say, okay, I'm a spiritual person, I give up my archery, I give up my basketball, But he says that that's against God to do that. What? Why?
Well, because see, that's your meditative discipline.
And what is a meditative discipline?
Well, it keeps you closer to in alignment with the flow. See, we need something to keep bringing us into an alignment with the flow, so that this accidental surprise occurs, and I'm just in the flow.
Do you want to explain that more? Or?
No.
So, are you ready to do another video really quick?
Yeah.
So these have been pretty good, right, Grandpa?
Yeah.